Thanks, Frank. As Frank said, my name is Ben Gerald, and I'm joined today with Maria Arizari. You got that right? I've been practicing all week to say it correctly. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'll begin today with an overview of the plans preparation manual update process, and then Maria will discuss some of the updates on the website and also the design bulletins. And then Maria and I will discuss cross-slope correction and typical sections. As many of you know, the plans preparation manual is also known as the PPM, consists of two manuals. Volume 1 contains design criteria and procedures for FDOT, and Volume 2 covers plans preparation and assembly of the contract plans. Both volumes are in English units, and you can find the PDF files for each chapter of Volume 1 and 2 on the website shown on this slide. We not only provide the most recent updated PPM, but we also have archived manuals that date back as far as 1967, if you're interested. Now the PPM update process basically, which updates the plans preparation manual. We're constantly working on updates for the manual pretty much all year, and our team of senior designers represent each of the 7 districts and the Turnpike, and they meet every month to work on proposed revisions to the manual, and sometimes every week, depending on how close we are to updating the manual or what the proposed revisions are. These proposed revisions are received throughout the year from various sources. We often receive draft language from other departments such as structures, specifications and estimates, utilities and planning. And the draft language is reviewed at the senior design engineers meetings. And sometimes the draft language is changed several times before it is ready to be presented to the district design engineers. And then the district design engineers review the draft PPM and provide comments on the proposed language for adoption by the state engineers. Once the revisions are adopted, then the updated PPM can be prepared to be posted on the PPM website. And those of you who are registered can receive notification of the latest PPM update. With that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Maria to talk about the updates and the web pages.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Okay, first of all, I would like to guide you through our website, to the Roadway Design website. As you can see, we list the implementation memo, which is published every year to summarize the updates made to the PPM and to establish how these changes will be implemented. The implementation memo is available on our website through this link you see here. Also on this site, you can find the complete plans preparation manual, which, like Ben said, it's available in individual chapters, and they're in PDF format. All forms included in the PPM are updated accordingly and are accessible through this link. In addition, training programs and courses offered by various offices in the Office of Design are made accessible to you through the link at the bottom of this page. And to ensure you receive notification of all updates or revisions, you can register in our website by entering your personal and business information and your areas of interest in the contact mailer. A roadway design bulletin is published when a roadway issue is identified that must be addressed prior to the next release or update of the PPM, design standards, etc. And registered customers will receive contact mailer notifications whenever we publish a design bulletin. The most recent roadway design bulletins are posted on our website listed here. And all the previous roadway design bulletins are accessible through this link in the bottom of this page, of this website. And it will take you to the list of all the previous and archived roadway design bulletins.
And thanks, Maria. Of course, we'd like to hear from you if you have any questions or comments throughout the year, not just after the update training, but throughout the year. If you have any questions or comments, or you find anything that maybe isn't correct in the plans preparation manual, we sure appreciate it when you let us know. Okay, now we'll start with our next presentation, which is the cross-slope correction in typical sections. We continue to make changes to improve the design and construction of 3R projects. Some major changes were made last year to Chapter 25, if you might remember, and the changes this year complement last year's changes. Most of the changes this year were made to the typical section details, so we'll focus most of our attention today on that. But as a brief reminder of some of the major things from last year, the 2012 PPM established that the cross-slope correction method used for the 3R projects shall be shown in milling and resurfacing details, and to add tabulated existing cross slopes at 100-foot intervals where needed. That's where the cross slope correction is needed. And for more information on, for more guidance on developing your pavement design, of course, use the FDOT Flexible Pavement Design Manual, and you can see the website here provided on this slide. Now I hand it over to Maria again. And I'll return in a few minutes to talk about the cross-slope correction.
Okay, so for 3R projects, after evaluating the existing conditions, we need to determine which will be the best resurfacing option. These are match existing or cross-slope correction. And I'm going to first start with describing match existing for today. Okay, the term match existing has been used on resurfacing projects for years, but it hasn't been defined in the PPM until this year. It is now defined in the introduction of Volume 1 of the PPM under the glossary of terms. This term, match existing, is used when the existing cross slopes are to remain. This is applicable to constant depth milling and resurfacing projects. So the term match existing is used when cross-slope correction is not needed and the existing cross-slope is to remain. If existing conditions are within the allowable ranges, the term match existing shall be used. The allowable ranges can be found in Table 25.4.6 and Table 25.4.7 in Volume 1, Chapter 25 of the PPM. This is Table 25.4.6 for which lists the allowable ranges for roadway cross slopes. This is good for 2-lane roads, multi-lane roads, shoulders, and parking lanes. And don't forget to review the notes below the table. For freeways, you can use the ranges in the table 25.4.7 to determine if match existing can be used in the typical section or if cross-slope correction is needed. Again, don't forget to review the notes below the table. Match existing consists of constant depth milling where no cross-slope correction is made and resurfacing at a constant thickness with no overbuild. An example of match existing typical section for a two-lane undivided road is shown here in Exhibit 7, Tip 7, and you can find these exhibits in Volume 2, Chapter 6 of the PPM. In this case, for constant depth milling for match existing is now shown on the mainline typical section of and the shoulder pavement detail. Notice that constant depth milling and resurfacing has been added above the pavement design to clarify the resurfacing method used. Milling existing asphalt pavement for depth has been added on the milling for further emphasis. The use of constant depth milling and average depth was removed after 2 inches. Exhibit Tip 11 shows a 4-lane divided road, and similar to the 2-lane exhibit previously shown, the term match existing was added and the same changes were made to the pavement design. Now Ben is going to continue to expand and explain on more cross-slope correction methods.
Thank you, Maria. Now there are 3 methods for cross-slope correction: the variable depth milling, and the constant depth milling and overbuild, and variable depth milling and overbuild. You want to make sure you always work with your design engineer, work with your pavement design engineer, and your district bituminous engineer to determine appropriate method, the method of correction. And remember to don't show your corrections in your cross sections. Now this is the preferred method for correcting cross slope to the standard cross slope provided in Chapter 2. The variable depth milling is. And this method consists of milling the existing pavement to the standard cross slope, then resurfacing the milled surface at a constant thickness with the asphalt needed to reach the desired structural number. Now, this is an example of a 4-lane divided typical section where the cross slope is being corrected with variable depth milling. A few changes have been made to the pavement design. The cross slope correction has been added to above the station range, and variable depth milling was added below the station range. This should make it clear to the contractor that this section of the project is to be corrected with milling. This exhibit provides examples of variable depth milling detail and constant depth resurfacing detail. In this variable depth milling detail, one milling control point is shown there on the left, top left, with a depth, and the milled surface is provided with a slope. This is all the contractor needs to develop this to make this cross slope correction. Notice how the existing cross slope is shown in the boxes on the lower left, or on the lower right, I'm sorry. The constant depth resurfacing detail in the lower left shows the constant depth resurfacing asphalt added on the milling surface. And the changes made to the two-lane undivided road shown in Exhibit Tip A and Tip 8A now are similar to those made in the previous exhibit we talked about earlier for the four-lane exhibit, Tip 12 and Tip 12A. And this is just the details for that two-lane road. All very similar to what was done in the four-lane. Difference here is that the control point would be in the center instead of on the side of the road there. For constant depth milling and overbuild, you have you want to mill at a constant depth, and then slope correction by overbuild, and resurfacing at a constant thickness on top of the overbuild. Constant depth milling was added to the pavement design below this station range for Exhibit Tip 13. And you'll notice a difference here from last year that we don't have a milling detail shown here. So no detail is really needed for constant depth milling, although the existing cross slopes are provided on the lower right. Now, as an overbuild and resurfacing detail is needed, as is shown on the sheet. Overbuild is shown on the milled surface, and to correct this cross slope, and the structural course and friction course are added on the top of the overbuild. Refer to FDOT specification 334 for minimum and maximum asphalt layer thicknesses when you're doing your overbuild. The changes made for two-lane undivided road shown in Exhibit Tip 9 and Tip 9A are similar to those made in the four-lane exhibit, Tip 13 and Tip 13B, previously discussed. Again, this is just a detail for the two-lane. Very similar to what we did on the four-lane. There may be times when cross slope cannot be corrected with the first two methods, and a combination of those two methods are required to make the correction needed. Hopefully, you wouldn't have to do this very often, but there are times you would. Variable depth milling has been added to the pavement design below the station range here on this typical section, on this exhibit. And this exhibit provides examples of a variable depth milling detail and a variable depth overbuild and resurfacing detail. So on this one, you just have both. You're correcting with both methods. So in summary, you can, if possible, if you're within the ranges, you want to have You can use a match existing cross slope. If you have to correct your cross slope, there are 3 different methods you can use: the variable depth milling, the constant depth milling and overbuild, and then the variable depth milling and overbuild combination. And for showing the details, for showing those details, you can look at our Volume 2, Chapter 6, the exhibits, for examples on how to do that.
We do have a few questions here for Ben Gerald, and he has been able to join us back, and I think we're going to answer some of those. So if you'll just give us a few minutes, and Ben will answer some of the questions that came through. Thank you for holding. Okay, it looks like the first question that we're going to address is a question that came in that says, I am new to FDOT design projects, sorry, excuse me. What is the best way to get familiarized with roadway and bridge lighting requirements?
I wasn't sure if that was lighting or if it was height requirements.
It's lighting requirements.
Okay. Well, as far as roadway requirements for new construction and reconstruction criteria, that can be found in Chapter 2 of the PPM. And then if it's a resurfacing project, it can be found in Chapter 25 of the PPM. There's also a lighting section, Chapter 7, I believe, in PPM. So PPM is the best source to go and look for criteria.
Great, thanks, Ben. The next question is, in Volume 2, what does it mean, mill for depth, and why do we use this terminology?
Mill for depth, that just means that the asphalt is being milled at a constant depth, and this means that no cross slope correction the cross slope is not being corrected with milling.
Thank you. The next question that came in says, is cross slope correction required on all 3R projects, and can it be avoided depending on accidents and design speed?
Cross slope correction is not required on all projects. However, whenever practical, pavement and shoulder cross slopes shall be constructed to new construction criteria. When meeting new construction cross slope criteria is not practical, documentation is required, and cross slopes used shall be consistent with the values in the Chapter 25, Table 25.4.6, and Table 25.4.7, which we previously discussed in our presentation.
Thanks, Ben. And those presentations are being recorded just for those of you that have questions about that. And we will be posting to the Roadway Design internet site by the end of the week. And also, if you visit the Office of Design webpage, there's a training link, and that will also direct you to these presentations. And some of the information, I believe, is scrolling now on the screen. So if you need to jot down any of those websites, you can do so, and we'll be providing them tomorrow as well. Okay, Ben, it looks like we have another question that came in and says, the constant depth notation seems to be problematic. We are allowed only minimal sections for cross-slope determinations. Once this goes to construction and it is found that areas in between the sections taken do not fit the tolerance, will this be considered an O&R?
I think this is mainly a situation where they didn't have enough information on the project. Many of the problems associated with resurfacing projects in the past have been due to insufficient information available to the designer. They didn't have enough information. This was changed last year when the 2012 PPM was updated, and to require field verification of existing pavement for vehicle-mounted scanners or full DTM. This was not implemented until November 2012 of last year. And but you can find this and this new criteria. You can find this in Section 25.4.6 of Volume 1 in the PPM.